Meet the Rad Trike, Rad's first electric trike. Well, if you don't count the Rad burro that was designed for businesses. The Rad Trike here is meant to be more accessible than a typical e-bike, especially for folks that might have mobility issues or other obstacles to riding a traditional e-bike. I've been testing out the Rad Trike and have really enjoyed it, though I've got a few complaints too. So buckle up while we cover everything I loved and a few things I didn't love about this fun new three-wheeler.
Hey everyone, Micah here with Electrek, and today we're reviewing the Rad Trike from Rad Power Bikes. This is Rad's most accessible e-bike yet, and we're going to check it out. Let's hit it.
First off, let's get a quick overview of the specs here. The Rad Trike has a front hub motor that puts out 750 watts of power, which sounds like a lot for a front hub, but they did something clever to make that manageable, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The trike gets up to 14 miles an hour, which also sounds kind of slow, but trust me when I say that 14 miles an hour on a three-wheeler feels way faster than that for some reason. And since it's electric, you're not working too hard to get up to that 14 miles an hour, unlike a poor schmuck on a pedal bike. The battery here is a 48 volt and 10 amp hour unit with 480 watt hours of capacity. It's removable, so you can take it off for charging, which is good if you park somewhere different than where you charge, because this would be a lot of trike to carry into your house or apartment every day. But if you charge in your garage, then you can just leave the battery on the bike. Rad says you'll get up to 55 miles of range, and to be honest, that does not seem overly optimistic based on my experience on the Rad Trike. Since the bike just is not very fast, it sips away at that battery slowly, so you actually get really good range even with a smaller battery. And those small 18-inch wheels also have low rolling resistance, which also helps keep the trike efficient. This is not a lightweight trike though, at about 82 pounds. However, you can take 9 pounds or so off if you remove the battery. The frame is nicely designed with a folding handlebar connection, which makes it so that if you can lift it, you can put it in the back of an SUV or a van without needing to disassemble anything, as long as your back row of seats folds flat. So those are the major specs on the Rad Trike. Now let's talk about how it rides. I really thought it would feel more tippy since many trikes make you feel like you'll roll over in turns, but I could actually make turns at full speed on the Rad Trike as long as they weren't too tight, and tight turns can even be done safely at slower speeds.
Now I'm impressed with Rad at just how stable they made this trike. The rear end is as wide as they can make it and have it still fit through an exterior door. And what that means is you can actually turn quite tight and quite quickly here without going up on two wheels. Now of course if I go going fast enough and I take a turn like that, there we go. Now I can get up on two wheels, but it's quite hard to do. You really gotta throw your weight and turn sharply to do it. I think that as long as you're taking a leisurely cruise like this and you're not trying to throw your weight around like that, you can actually turn quite tight here and you don't have to worry about going up on two wheels or flipping over.
In fact, the trike can turn so tight that you can do a full 180 U-turn in the width of a sidewalk, which is kinda cool. There's also a reverse function if you did need to maneuver even more sharply, where you just hold the down button on the display for a couple seconds and then the throttle works to roll you backwards. But unless you're in a real tight jam, you can probably just steer around and do a 180 in place. The motor up front is surprisingly gentle on takeoff, which is due to Rad designing in a really smooth throttle ramping profile. Even when you go full throttle from a standstill, it takes a few seconds for the motor to gently build up power. If you want to ride this around like a hot rod, that might be annoying, but for safety, especially with older and returning riders on it, that's a very nice feature that will surely make many people feel more confident on the bike. Now one quick thing to note here, and this is true on all electric tricycles, is you need to pay attention to where all of your wheels are. By that I mean when there are obstacles like potholes, instead of just having to worry about a single track of wheels like on a bicycle, a trike rider has to be concerned with 3 tracks of wheels. You'll find that it becomes intuitive after a while, and you can even bet your camera on knowing exactly where all 3 wheels are on the road. For braking, I'm happy to see both a front disc brake and a rear coaster brake. Now I don't use the coaster brake much, but I can see how older riders that don't want to reach for the brake lever might prefer to brake with their feet while keeping a full grip on the bars. I also really like that parking brake they added, since otherwise the trike could roll away on a hill as there's no kickstand digging into the ground. I was a bit surprised by how well the bike worked when the road ends. I'm not saying this is an off-road e-bike, but I am saying I took it off-road. And what do you know, I may be bouncing around more than a fish on a dock, but the Rad Trike is handling it quite nicely and still staying pretty darn stable. And since the bike does not have any suspension, it's great that it's got that nice big seat, so when it does bounce you around, at least you're bouncing on a nice big comfy tractor seat instead of a small bicycle saddle. Now that does bring me to my list of things I didn't like as much about the trike. Let's start with the cadence sensor for pedal assist. This would have been a prime example of a bike to install a torque sensor on for more responsive pedal assist. The single speed setup means that getting rolling is harder since the pedal assist is optimized for around 10 miles an hour or so. And since it's a cadence sensor pedal assist with that telltale lag for the first second or so, you're on your own to get the bike rolling before the pedal assist kicks in after a pedal revolution. For that reason, I pretty much always blip the throttle even while I'm trying to use pedal assist, just to get me rolling, and then I can let my feet take over. Also, when I'm on the highest pedal assist level, number 5, the pedal speed feels a tad fast. I'm not quite turning my legs into an egg beater, but it's not a leisurely pace either. That's kind of a necessity though, because otherwise it'd be nearly impossible to get rolling from a stop by pedal force alone, but it also means that level 4 pedal assist is kind of the sweet spot for the single speed trike. Though if you just want to roll around on throttle all the time, you won't even have to worry about any of this. Now I would have loved to have seen Rad include their secondary display on the handlebars so I could see speed and odometer readings. Yeah, it's not really necessary, but speed is kind of fun and odometers are useful for scheduled maintenance routines, and are also just kind of fun for reaching personal milestones, like seeing your first 500 miles tick by. I also really would have liked to see Rad include at least a rear basket on the Rad Trike as standard equipment. Now I get why they didn't include it. It comes down to money. It cost them more to include it. They would have had to pay more to ship the bike in a bigger box. So if you are getting a Rad Trike, I recommend adding the rear basket, but I just wish Rad had included it as standard equipment. Though perhaps one benefit of having no basket is you really get to appreciate that molded plastic chain cover there that Rad created for safety. Other than that, the only other area I go back and forth on here is the price. $2,500 seems a bit high when I really look at what I'm getting. There's a smaller battery, only mechanical brakes, no suspension, steel frame, etc. But then again, there's more behind the scenes there. The battery's a new model from Rad. The mechanical brakes allow the addition of that critical parking brake to keep the bike from rolling away on a slight incline. The steel rear end has a bit of natural flex built in that really helps with that stability in turns, and the lack of suspension keeps the weight down and the center of gravity lower, complementing the Rad Trike's already very low center of gravity design. Plus, not to mention that even though it doesn't come fully assembled, they really nicely designed that packaging to make it super easy to assemble. That's why I keep going back and forth on the price. $2,500 is not cheap, but it's much cheaper than all those $3,000 and up e-trikes out there. But also, the Rad Trike doesn't have that much more in components over bikes like the Rad Mission that Rad sold for half this price. You've got a more complicated frame, an extra wheel, and a more powerful motor. So if Rad had come out at maybe $2,000 perhaps, I would have said no brainer, get one for you and a friend. It's a really nicely designed and rock solid e-trike that is purpose built from the ground up for this application. At $2,500, I still say this is a solid buy and it's just as well designed no matter the price, but it just feels higher than I would have expected. But considering the growing market for trikes and the current lack of another solid design like this in this price range, it opens the door to a whole new group of riders here. There are a few components I wouldn't mind seeing upgraded, like I'd give my left axle nut for a torque sensor, but it's hard for me to fault the bike on mechanics or design. Rad did a very good job building this thing, and if you have one in your garage, then I can all but guarantee you that you're gonna love it.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We hope you enjoyed that review of the Rad Trike. If you did, why don't you give this video a thumbs up? And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our future electric vehicle videos. We'll see you here next time.